Hello, number 3. No, you are not late. I'm maybe a little late. I usually come on before 10 past, don't I? Something like that. Anyway, I like to give you a little bit of time to gather yourselves. I don't want to jump in and then people are like, I missed the beginning. And Graham might have said something really interesting at the beginning of the show. Yeah, like that ever happens. Anyway, it is Monday, the 30th of January, 2023. This is the War on Error. I am Graham Hughes, your humble host. And I'd just like to say a big hello to David, to Mad Monk, to Cathal, to Jacob, to number 3, as I mentioned before, to Graham Haller, Lefty Bolter, Bolter? The Lefty Bolter. No, the Lefty Boater. I actually made it. Second stream in a row. I'm doing well. Well done, Lefty Boater. And David is saying my lovely ginger, which is nice. Thank you very much. I do miss my ginger mane that I used to have back in the day. But I won't go on about that. I've got on about it enough. Anyway, right. Let's get into it, shall we? Tax Dodgers United. I want to talk today a little bit about dodging tax, which is something that the Taxpayers Alliance, Tax Dodgers Alliance, more like, that's what I should have called this. I should have called it the Tax Dodgers Alliance, shouldn't I? Oh, bollocks. Missed the trick there. Why didn't they call it Tax Dodgers Alliance? Fuck. All right, well, anyway, let's just imagine the show's called the Tax Dodgers Alliance, because I can't change the name midstream, unfortunately. Oh, hi to Patrick McCarthy, who's also there. Hello, Patrick. Basically, you've got all these very rich businessmen, and some businesswomen as well, who were often born into loads of money and don't like spending it on helping other people who were not necessarily born into lots of money. The reason why they do this is manifold, but generally it boils down to they are selfish cunts. That's what it is. They're selfish. Selfish cunts, you see. They think that their money is better spent by them, usually on yachts and property in other countries and offshore investments, rather than, being spent in their community, like what most of us normal people spend our money on, stuff in our community. If we just spent £5, if every man, woman and child just spent just spent £5 a week in their local communities, it would generate over £20 billion for local businesses around the country. £5, that's it, instead of spending it at Tesco and Sainsbury's and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. Oh, Phil Spicer's here. Sunak knew everything. Surprise! Surprise Spicer. Yes, indeed you are right, Phil. And thank you very much for my £2 super chat. First super chat of the night. Well done. Thank you. Really appreciate it. But yes, Rishi Sunak did know about Zahawi, his chairman of the Conservative Party. Chairman of the Conservative Party. Formerly Chancellor of the Exchequer for about 5 minutes. Under the dying days of Boris Johnson, I think, until they picked a new person to take over when they wanted a different prime minister, and you could vote, and it was really democratic. Because not only did you not need voter ID to vote, you could also not be British. You could actually be Russian. You could be a Russian criminal. You could be a Russian paedophile in jail in Russia, in Siberia. Get this. But if you were a member of the Tory party, you could vote on our prime minister. Democracy, man. That's what it's all about. And if you had enough money to, make a load of fake accounts, I guess, a lot of bots that could vote the way you wanted to, I suppose you could put in anyone you wanted. Which is the worry. The worry being that Boris Johnson might be trying to make a comeback. We'll talk about this in a moment. Let's just talk about tax for a little bit longer, though. We've got QA Library saying the Taxpayers Alliance dates back to the 1930s. Wow. Corruption. Oh, do you know what else dates back to the 1930s? The British Union of Fascists. Funny that. Context says, good evening, everyone. Hello, Context. We've also got the number 3 saying the Anti-Growth Alliance is to be found at 55 Tufton Street. It is indeed. The way you grow an economy is by getting people to spend money in the economy. People, normal people, not rich people. Because rich people, if you give a rich person more money, they don't spend it in their local community. They don't spend it in their... How many times do I have to say this? They don't spend it in their local community. Because there's no one in the local community that makes fucking Fabergé eggs or cocaine or whatever the fuck it is that these rich fuckers spend all their money on, that they can't, I don't know, give it to schools, give it to hospitals, give it to good causes, give it to people, you know, less fortunate than they are, less privileged than they are. Heaven forfend. They don't even like the idea of people talking about people being less privileged than they are. They call it woke. If you talk about the fact that you have white privilege or male privilege or fucking rich cunt privilege, apparently that's being woke, and that's a bad thing. No one can explain why it's a bad thing, but it's a bad thing. The people being woke at me, they're being all woke, they're being aware of the injustices that are going on in the world. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Seriously, it's the level of debate now that you can expect in this country, where everyone's lost their fucking minds. Although, really good news is that like everyone is now saying bollocks to Brexit. Everyone who's not fucking mental. Everyone who's not fucking senile is now saying bollocks to Brexit. In fact, in the latest studies, it shows that if every constituency in the UK, all 650 constituencies of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, if they had a referendum tomorrow, based on the polls, every single one of them would vote to remain in the EU. Except for 3 in Lincolnshire. I don't know what they're putting in the water in Lincolnshire. Actually, I do. You know what they're putting in the water. We all know what they're putting in the water in Lincolnshire. Boil it before you drink it, lads. We've got Reagan Elite. Oh, it's good to have Reagan Elite along. Evening all. And yes, everyone's saying Boris is always trying to make a comeback. Yes. Let's just talk about this for a moment. I'll try to get back into tax in a bit. But like, Boris Johnson was on the front pages of the newspapers today because, sorry, I said to say newspapers. I meant gutter, filth, trash, rag, bollocks. Oh, that's a better way of putting it, isn't it? Comment papers. The comment papers, the upper class, privately educated comment papers for the plebs. So basically what the privately educated gobshites wanted us to read about today wasn't the fact that Zahavi was sacked yesterday. It was only yesterday. After Rishi Sunak claims that he reviewed it. He's known since the summer. Rishi Sunak has known since the summer that Zahavi was having a run-in with the HMRC. They knew. He knew. But apparently, new evidence came to light on Sunday morning. Yesterday morning, 7 o'clock, he went, oh, whoa, he broke the ministerial code. Oh, okay, then we'll have to get rid of him. That makes a change. Normally, when someone breaks the ministerial code, like Boris Johnson or Priti Patel, the person who draws up the report saying that they broke the ministerial code usually has to resign. Not the person who broke the ministerial code. Ha! Corruption! Isn't it lovely? Does it taste of, like, I don't know, hot gravel? Taste that lovely corruption. Ooh, so good. So good. Anyway, so basically every single newspaper today should be dominated by the fact that comment paper, should be, let's find out what the upper class think of everything paper. What it should have been today is all about Zahavi, right? Right? No. So, The Guardian led with the Zahavi story, a serious failure, it said. The Times, Zahavi axed as Sunak gets tough on standards. Murdoch pressed there up the arse of the Prime Minister. You don't have to travel very far because he's only short. The Daily Telegraph there. PM sacked Zahavi without a fair hearing. This is the Tory graph owned by the Barclay brother. There's only one. Does that make him not a brother anymore? The Barclay. The Barclay. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh about that. Yes, I should. Anyway, so we go through it all. Like, the Daily Mirror is writing Tories engulfed by sleaze, rotten to the core. The Daily Star's got a wonderful story about Pamela Anderson wanting to be a librarian when she was younger. And The Independent says, what took you so long, Rishi? And the I newspaper goes with Sunak's allies to blame Johnson for Tory sleaze after the PM sacks Sahari. Right. And then Financial Times, obviously, Sunak sacks Tory party chair Sahari. Okay. However, there's a notable couple of papers here that don't cover the story on the front page. Well, they do, but in the corner, right? So, obviously, you got the Star, because they're talking about Pamela Anderson wanting to be a librarian. Okay. But that's the Daily Star. It's like the Sunday Sport. Remember the Sunday Sport where they found the bus on the moon? Yeah. It was like the Viz, and someone went, let's make the funny piss take newspaper in the Viz, let's make it a real newspaper. Anyway, so talking of daft piss take newspapers, the Mail and the Express, the two absolute clanging gobshites of the journalistic world, everyone who works for the Mail and the Express is a gobshite. I don't know what the Sun says. I don't even look at the Sun. I'm not looking at the Sun. I hate the fucking Sun. I live in a world where the Sun doesn't exist. Total eclipse of the Sun. But the Express and the Daily Mail go with Putin's threat to kill Boris. I don't want to hurt you, but with a missile, it would only take a minute. It's apparently something that fucking Vladimir Putin said to Boris Johnson. I mean, talk about like a mafiosi fucking murderous dictator, the worst dictator of the 21st century so far in terms of dead body count. Yes, indeed, he's given al-Bashir and al-Assad a fucking run for their money. But yeah, fucking here he is. You probably think he's telling the truth on this one because Boris Johnson lies as easily as he breathes. He is a pathological liar. If you've ever met a pathological liar, if you have the misfortune of having a pathological liar in your life, you know what it's like because they just can't stop lying. They just really can't. And he's like that. He just can't stop lying. And on the front cover of the Express, it's got Boris, Putin told me I could kill you in a minute. And this is what all the stupid old fuckers read, right? So all the old people in the UK who are thick as pig shit and left school at 14 and sucked in loads of fucking lead. You know, obviously they had the nuclear tests when they were kids. So that was all these nuclear bombs blowing up around the world in the 50s and 60s. All that nuclear radiation. Then they had all the paint that had lead in it. They had the light bulbs that had radioactivity in it. They had paint that had radioactivity in it. Everyone smoked. Your gran smoked. Your baby smoked. The judge smoked. The vicar smoked. The prostitutes smoked. Everyone fucking smoked in the 50s and 60s. Everyone. So that's addling people's brains. And plus the exhausts of cars had lead in the petrol. Do you remember people complained about them taking the lead out of petrol because they said the cars wouldn't perform as well? People actually came out with this shite. Honestly. Like, it was just remarkable. No, it's not going to cause knocking in the engine, right? Because there's a synthetic thing that we can put in that's not as bad as lead, and that'll work. Oh, I don't want to not put lead in my car. Think of all the children who won't have to breathe it. Honestly, people complained about not being able to wear safety belts when safety belts came out. Like, when it became law to wear a safety belt. Oh, this is infringement of my civil liberties. They take away our freedom of movement. All the same fuckers, right? Brains addled by lead and nuclear fucking weapons fucking testing. They're all like, yeah, great, take away our freedom of movement. And in November, you're going to have to pay €7 just to go next door. Just to go to the countries that you have gone to all your life for nothing. Now you have to pay for it. And it's only an electronic travel authorization. They can say no, as has happened to me in the US. I've spoken about this before. If I want to go back to the US now, I have to get a full visa, which means I have to go down to London, which is £150 on the train. Ka-ching! I have to spend the night in London, which is another fucking £100 because it's fucking London. Actually, that's a bit of a lie. I just sleep on a mate's couch. But let's go with me on this. £100 to stay somewhere in London for the night. Ka-ching! Airbnb. And then I have to get up early and get to the embassy in where is it? Is it Battersea? Nine Elms? Somewhere like that. It's on that new little extension they've put on the Northern Line, right? And yeah, great. I'll go get there in the morning. I have to have an interview and I have to pay £150. So, maths on my head, that's £400 for me to go to America. Which is funny because that's the same price as a fucking flight to America. But I have to pay that and the flight to go to America. Even if I'm not going to America, I'm just changing flights in America. Fuck me sideways. Anyway, so that's what's happened to me in America. And I think that same thing's going to happen with a lot of people and the European Union. Because if they've got a traffic violation or a magnum up their sleeve or, even better, criminal conviction, the EU at some point in the next decade might turn around and say, we don't want criminals from Britain coming over to our countries. They can all fuck off. Or get a visa for 150 quid. Schengen visa. Anyway. So, yeah, that's what happened. Oh, I've got Wayne here. Great. He's going to be filthy and say lots of rude things. I'm buying you a boom for your mic. Your desk bopping days will be over. A boom. A boom for... Just get me a stand. Just get me... But then it'll be clipped onto the desk, won't it? I upset Wayne a lot when I bang the desk. Sorry, Wayne. Sorry. Right, Asperger's Europe says, government are fully aware that the tide of public opinion has turned against the B word, but they're too proud, stroke fearful, of being rejected in seeking closer relations with the EU, and how angry the public would be. Well, yeah, I mean, you know. QA Library says, TPA went spare over a local council spending money, there's a Taxpayers Alliance, went spare over a local council spending money, giving rubbish carts iPads. They tracked them and found that there were a lot of waste, changed the routes, saved 5 million, fly tipping and cleanup reduced. Yep. Good. But, I mean, obviously they went spare about that because it was spending money on things that they don't think that money should be spent on. You know, their taxes. Not that they pay tax, because they're all fucking tax dodgers. Did you hear? Ken Dodd got 2 new Diddy men. Diddy pay and Diddy L. Little joke there for the people who were alive in the early 90s. Anyway, moving on. If Putin wants to hurt Bojo, he just needs to leak the photos and videos, etc. Yeah, but it won't, will it? It won't. Seriously, what could a release of a video of Boris Johnson balls deep in some prostitute from Vladivostok? What will that... How will that put off his hardcore supporters? It's like Trump. There's literally nothing they can do that'll stop their hardcore supporters loving them. And you ask their hardcore supporters, well, would you lead them in the locked room with your daughter, Trump or Johnson? And they go, well, not my daughter. Oh, but you're happy with them running a country. Okay, all right. Well, we know where your standards are there. At least you, oh my God. Or even worse, they go, yeah, I'll be perfectly happy with Trump being locked in a room with my daughter for 3 hours. What the fuck? Yeah, bit scary. Anyway, how can we even trust the liar? Well, which one? What's this? Graham Hughes politics should be on GB News. What? I don't want to be on Gogglebox News. Googlebox. What the fuck's it called? GBBs. I don't want to be on GBBs. To translate for the filthy Americans. The filthy Americans. A gobshite is a human that speaks fecal matter out of their mouth. It's a good old expression. I think it's originally from Ireland, but we use it a lot in Liverpool. A lot of us in Liverpool were originally from Ireland, or at least a part of our DNA was. The Lefty Boat says, I used to hide in the sun when I used to hide the sun. Hide from the sun. I used to hide the sun when I worked for the Big Blue Supermarket. Good job, Lefty Boater. I like your style. It proves BJ is not Russian, doesn't it? Number 3. What? It proves he's not Russian. Well, he helped the Russians, and he took a lot of money from Russians. He took money off Russians to have a fucking tennis match with him and all that kind of shit. Oh yeah, and he made some Russian guy who was the son of a KGB agent. He made him Lord Lebedev of fucking Siberia and Swansea or something. Back in the 50s and 60s, 80% of people smoked. QA Library, 80%. It's remarkable. Sorry, banging the table again. That is remarkable, isn't it? 80%. Wow. Wow. Yeah. We could all be punished for daring to be pro-EU. Ooh. Project Fear, says Duke Vengeance. Angry doesn't begin how to describe how I feel. Well, you are called Duke Vengeance, my friend. That sums it up quite well. You are the Duke of Vengeance. How much lower will we sink? Oh, well, Plum Duff, I think there's still got some way to go down. I don't think we'll ever find the end of the Tories. It's just a bottomless pit, isn't it? QA Library says, when transferring aircraft in the States, even when you are not leaving the airport due to 9/11 and the Patriot Act, everyone needs to pass customs in the USA. Yes, indeed. That's what I mean. Even if I'm transferring flights from one to another and not leaving the airport, I still have to have a full American visa. Yeah. Great job. How much lower will Graham's jokes sink? Well, I don't know. Pretty fucking low. I don't. They have a base either. Patrick Baker. I wouldn't leave Trump in a room with his own daughter. No. Oh God, that's really quite disturbing, isn't it? He did actually once sit his 15-year-old daughter on his knee and said basically that if she wasn't his daughter, that he would fuck her. Yeah, that happened. Charlie Nelson is there with £2 super chat. Thank you very much, Charlie. Always appreciated. Eye up, he says. Mashed eat 4D, 3D for you. Do you think Remainers believe in the EU ideals, or is it only economic interest? Well, for me, I believe in the ideals of the EU. I believe in the idea that this was set up to ensure there wasn't another war on our continent. And I'll tell you a little story. Let's tell you a little story about a little place called Serbia, which was one of Russia's remaining friends. Because when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2016, when it first invaded Ukraine, it still had some mates out there who were like, yeah, this is a really good thing that you did. And unfortunately, the international community didn't really condemn the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, the illegal annexation of the Crimean Peninsula by this fucking scumbag, Vladimir Putin, and his Wagner group of mercenaries, rapists, butchers, scum. The people didn't really, the international community didn't really kick up a stink about it. Now, when he invaded Ukraine, suddenly the international community when he invaded the rest of Ukraine, the international community suddenly sat up and took notice. I mean, for fuck's sake, Malaysian Airlines MH17 was blown up by the fucking Russians flying over the Russian-infested part of Ukraine, the eastern Ukraine, in the Donbass region. And after that should have been the end of it. I mean, the invasion of Crimea should have been the end of it. The fucking blowing up of a civilian aircraft and the death of 300 people should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. And so now we fast forward to 2022, February 2022. My God, it's coming up to a year since the invasion. And Putin is he gets up for this invasion again. And he's like, who's with me? And the sad little second fiddle fucking player, Lukashenko, the leader of Belarus, he's like, yeah, I'm with you. Putin, I love you. Which is really sad, actually, because he used to be the senior in that relationship, and now he's the junior, even though Putin is younger than him. It's really sad. And they were going to join their countries together and make one big white Russia. Of course, that didn't happen. Anyway, although it might still happen when Putin maybe invades Belarus and takes over, which could happen. He's already got a lot of troops there. Anyway, back to Serbia. Serbia has a little bit of a rollercoaster history, and a history of antagonism towards its neighbours, obviously with the Balkanization of the Balkans. Who sort of predicted that the term Balkanization was actually invented before the Balkans balkanized, which is Kind of weird. But anyway, so there was a country called Yugoslavia. It's now 7 countries. One of them managed to get away kind of without too much bloodshed, or any bloodshed at all, which was Slovenia, which joined the EU 2007, I think. So good 15 years ago plus. And then we had Croatia, which did have a proper war with Serbia. And they joined the EU in 2013. And Serbia wants to join the EU. Bosnia-Herzegovina wants to join the EU. Montenegro wants to join the EU. North Macedonia wants to join the EU. Kosovo wants to join the EU. So all these little states that make up what used to be, all these little countries that make up what used to be Ukraine, all pretty much want to join the EU. So does Moldova. So does Ukraine, because the EU is fucking awesome. And so over the summer, Serbia was like, yay, Russia, great. And they were getting pictures taken with the Wagner fuckers and the people with the Zs, the Z t-shirts. They're pro-Russia protests in Belgrade, the capital of Serbia. And this was all going on, and it was a bit like, all right, mate, yeah, okay. Don't know what to say about this. It's a bit, a bit embarrassing for Serbia, really, to be on the side of Russia in this situation where Russia has blatantly invaded its neighbour. But then Putin did something rather interesting. He decided that he was going to annex these 4 parts of Ukraine, of eastern Ukraine, southeastern Ukraine. And he basically used the justification of the recognition of Kosovo by over 100 countries. Obviously, Kosovo is recognized by pretty much every country in the EU. It's also recognized by countries around the world. Over 100 of them recognize Kosovo as an independent nation, and it's why I included it in my list of 201 countries when I was visiting every country in the world without flying, even though it's not a full member of the UN. The reason why it's not a full member of the UN is because places like Russia back up Serbia to say, no, it's still part of Serbia. Interesting fact, if you're going into Kosovo from Serbia, that's no problem. You can go through the checkpoint, they'll stamp your passport on the way in, and you can come out the same way if you want, if you've got a passport stamp from one of the northern borders. But if you come in from the south, if you come up through North Macedonia into Kosovo, they will not let you into Serbia. So you have to go into Montenegro, and then you have to go into Serbia because they won't allow you to have a stamp going into Kosovo from the south because they see it as part of Serbia. Now, there's been brokered peace talks between the EU and the US and Serbia and Kosovo, and KFOR troops are still there, by the way, the NATO troops. You can see why Serbia uses the Cyrillic alphabet. There's a bit of history there. They feel like, only Russia's really got their back. And then Putin goes and invades Ukraine, which everyone else was a bit like, oh, fuck. And then he goes and gives Kosovo as an example of why he's allowed to do what he's doing, which really pissed off the Serbians. Now, the Serbians themselves, I don't know. I don't want to speak for people from Serbia. I just know that every time I put up a video of me visiting every country in the world and I mentioned that I went to Kosovo, my comments were just filled with people from Serbia saying, Kosovo's not an independent nation, it is part of Serbia. I'd be like, okay, all right, whatever. I think it's an independent nation because my country regards it as an independent nation, so sorry. Maybe if I came from Russia, I would regard South Ossetia and Abkhazia and Transnistria as independent nations, but I don't. Anyway, so the point being that in the autumn, it looks like things have really shifted between Serbia and in the relations between Serbia and Russia, because I think someone tapped the leader on the shoulder and said, mate, you trade 10 times more with the EU than you do with Russia. So, in a way to answer the question, yeah, it probably was an economic thing that made Serbia in the last few days go, do you know what, Russia? Fuck off. We want to be a part of the EU. But the idea behind the EU wasn't built on economic, obviously, good economy means that you have less anarchy, less poverty, you have less crime, you have less hopelessness, you have less division. I mean, a prosperous society, a society in which the gap between rich and poor isn't absolutely astounding, is generally a more healthy society to live in, and a more healthy society to prosper in, a more peaceful society. But I'll tell you a story about when I was interviewed many moons ago by someone who's writing for Le Monde newspaper, I think, in France. And it was during my whole Remain, bollocks to Brexit thing, right? And they asked me what the EU meant to me. And I said, well, I think that if you spoke to a lot of British people and asked them what the EU meant to them, they'll just say trade or economics. But for me, it meant freedom, because as a child, I remember going on these camping holidays in a camper van around France and Spain and Italy and Switzerland, going into West Germany and not being able to go across the border into East Germany and having it explained to me. I was like 9 at the time or something. That was behind the Iron Curtain, and you need something called a visa to go over there. And then in the summer of 1990, I write about this in my book, actually, Man of the World, if you want to read it. Available from all bad booksellers, including Amazon. But if you read that, I do mention the fact that in the summer of 1990, we went on a camping trip and we went through the Iron Curtain, because it had come down November before. And I still have my piece of the Berlin Wall that I chipped off as a little kid. You could hire chisels and hammers, and you could chisel off a bit. And what they used to do, because all the smooth stuff had gone off the wall by then, because everyone had been chipping away at it for months, that people would in the morning before the tourists turn up, they would just like graffiti it a bit, just like spray it with a little bit of like zigzags of graffiti, so you could have a little bit of graffiti on your bit of the Berlin Wall, which is the important bit, I guess. So anyway, we went to Poland. I remember going to Poznan. We went to Hungary. We went to Czechoslovakia when it was still Czechoslovakia, and it was amazing. Like, it felt like suddenly my horizons had expanded. I was only fucking 11 years old at this point, so my brain wasn't entirely formed. I didn't really know what was going on, but it just seemed dead exciting that we had a map, and suddenly all this bit on the right that we used to be verboten, you interdit, you couldn't go there. Suddenly, bing, it like that bit of the map had opened up. Like when you're playing Grand Theft Auto and you open up a new bit of the map and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna explore this bit of the map. It was like that. That's how it felt. Anyway, so years later, obviously. So for me, it always meant freedom. That's what it meant. That's what the EU meant. It meant I could come and go. I could trade. I could buy stuff. I could work around the EU. Didn't have to ask any fucker's permission. It was fucking great. And I asked the journalist for Le Monde, I said, what does the EU mean to you? And he said, peace. And I never heard a British person say that about the EU. He was French. He said, it means peace. And I got it. His country was invaded in World War One and World War Two, and millions of people fucking died. That was horrific. And when people said never again, they fucking meant it. They didn't have the fingers crossed behind their back and go on these patriotic bullshit exercises to go to the grave sites in Ypres or in Dunkirk and then go, oh, you know what though? I'm going to go home and vote for Nigel Farage, the closest thing we've got to Hitler in this country right now. Oh yeah, but despite the fact that I'm with the men who fought against the Nazis, I'm going to vote for a Nazi. And they don't see the cognitive dissonance in that at all, which is quite remarkable. But there you go. So yeah, I mean, like that, when we talk about the EU, when we talk about going back into the EU, I'm going to make a very strong economic case for going back into the EU. I mean, it's there. It's literally the best economic case you can make. If we go back in the EU, the Chancellor will have £40 billion more a year in taxes alone. £40 billion more a year if we go back in the EU. So that is pretty solid economic argument that like anyone can understand unless they're being obtuse, unless they're being, disingenuous, let's say. However, I think for me and maybe my generation, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the cultural aspects of it matter more. The universities, Erasmus, the Horizon projects, the science, the research, and the fact that we can live and work in all these other amazing countries. And I hope that comes across, because what a lot of people don't get, I suppose, I know it sounds really patronizing, well, what you people don't understand is, but the rest of the world isn't like this. Getting around Africa is a fucking ball ache. Getting around Asia is a fucking ball ache. Getting around South America is a ball ache. Not because these countries aren't really interesting to go and visit or whatever, but just because of all the fucking bureaucracy, all the fucking paperwork, the visas you need, the things you've got to do. When I went to Uzbekistan, I needed to get like a little chitty to say where I had stayed the night, because couch surfing was illegal, believe it or not. So I had to go to a hotel and say, can I stay here tonight? And they were like, yes, that will be $5. And I give them $5, get the little chitty to say I stayed there that night, and then go back to the couch that I was surfing on, the couch surf host that I was staying with, and go, okay, I got a chitty now. Two of the people who were staying with the same host as me didn't get these chitties. They got stopped on the underground in the capital, Tashkent, and they were deported. They were deported out of Uzbekistan for not having these fucking little tiny receipts from where they've been staying for the past few nights in the country. And another people that I heard of, they went to a hotel and asked for some backdated chitties so they could, because they'd stayed with someone for the first 3 nights, which you're allowed to do apparently, but like the 4th night they didn't have a chitty, so they went and said, can we get a chitty from last night? And they're like, yeah, just wait there. And they went and got the police, and they got deported. So, I mean, when I talk about like the cultural aspects of Europe, it's not just that this is a beautiful continent, that it has some of the most mind-blowing, amazing architecture, history. I don't know if it's been great, but it's got it. It's got these remains. It's got these amazing edifices. It's got the food. It's got the cuisine, man. It's got fucking everything. It's got the sun. It's got the sea. It's got everything. And that is something to be treasured and valued, the cultural aspect of it. And it's something that I would like to be closer to. Thank you very much. Not further away from. I watched the Banshees of Inisherin this weekend, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching this. So maybe cover your ears for the next minute if you plan to watch the Banshees of Inisherin. Okay, I'll do this when I've finished talking about it. So basically, spoilers. In the Banshees of Inisherin, there's a guy, he decides he doesn't want to be friends with this other guy anymore. For no reason whatsoever. And he's like, I want you to fuck off. And he's like, but I want to still be friends. He's like, no, if you don't fuck off, I'm going to chop my fingers off. And he's like, but you're a violin player. You won't be able to play the violin anymore. That's really stupid. He says, I'm warning you, if you don't fuck off, I will chop my fingers off. And the guy doesn't fuck off, so the guy chops his fingers off and can't play the violin anymore. That's Brexit! It's like, I was watching it going, so this is set on a little island off the mainland, and this is what happens. This is literally Brexit. Anyway, I better go back to the normal chat now, because I'll give the signal that the spoilerific nature of what I was saying is gone. Okay. You can come back now. I'm not spoiling things now. You can come back. I'm not spoiling anything. Although I've got to tell you that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's mum. Okay, so listen, I've ignored your comments for far too long. I haven't talked about tax enough, and it's 9:45 now, which is not very good. Slovenia joined in 2004. Fuck yeah, it did. Wow, well done, Asperger's, for pointing that out. Sorry, I'm not a human Wikipedia, you know. That's why I always like try and preface everything with like, I think. Because it might not be 100% right. Give Graham a shovel so we can find out. What? Today, only 13% of the UK population smokes, and it's going down each year as older people die off. Yes, QA Library. I wanted to do a campaign, an anti-smoking campaign. I don't know how good it would be now, but like back in the day, like sort of 15 years ago, I wanted to do a campaign, and it was like these shots of people like in like going about the daily life in a city, and you've got like a group of people standing outside an office block and they're smoking, and then one of them like disappears, like fades out, like River Phoenix at the end of Stand By Me. And then you've got like two people in the car, and one of them smoking, and the person who is in the passenger seat just disappears. And then you've got like some people at the bus stop, and someone's smoking and they disappear. And then you've got some people, and it's just like these little montage of clips of, with some music playing, and then it just like fades to black, and it says, "Smokers, you are a dying breed." Because people are dying of smoke. The other thing I wanted to do a campaign which was like going to be one of those campaigns that just appeared on YouTube that never got on television, but you make out like it was actually made for television. And it was like secret recorded footage of politicians, tobacco barons, representatives, whatever. And basically it's them saying how great it is that people smoke. So you have a politician who's like really smug and is like, well, yes, obviously, I mean, the smokers, lung cancer, all that kind of stuff, it costs the NHS £3 billion a year. But the tax we make from selling cigarettes brings in £9 billion a year. That's one hell of a profit. And then it fades to black and just says, keep smoking, dickheads. Bit of reverse psychology there. Anyone watching this work for Saatchi and Saatchi? Do you want to give us a job? I wish I'd known you were doing a live tonight. Would have set up the bin rig and jumped on with your brother, says Wayne. Wayne, I do a live show every Monday and Thursday. Keep up at the back. 9 o'clock. Monday and Thursday. 9 o'clock. He's probably gone now. He's probably got bored because I wasn't reading his messages. I wish we could eradicate dishonesty in public, especially by influential figures, of course. The lies upon lies really mess up our society. Yes, for every lie that's told, every lie incurs a debt to the truth. And one day that debt is paid. USA and others are looking to sending F-16 to Ukraine. My keyboard only goes up to F12. So F-16 sounds pretty good. The thing is, most F-16s are so old, most airframes are no longer flight worthy. The aircraft is like 40 years old. Hey, I'm over 40 years old. I'm still serviceable. Sorry. Anyway, so it might be sending Ukraine old planes, not to draw Russia ire too much, maybe. The Russians use World War I aircraft to trigger the Ukrainian anti-drone defenses. Fucking hell, really? That's kind of mad. Philip, forgive him because you spell your first name correctly. Excellent. Plum says, I've grown my hair for winter in order to keep warm and avoid buying a hat. Today I found an old woolly hat dangling from a roadside bush. My question is, do I cut my hair or go for the bush offering? You know what? If I could have my mane back, I'll take it back today. But I still wore a hat, even though I had loads of hair at one stage in my life. Oh, great days. Maybe I should get a wig. Do you see the ambulances and hotel beds they want to open up? But where did they get the staff from? Yeah, they're going to have 1 million beds. Million beds. How many vacancies are there in the NHS at the moment? Can someone look it up? I think it's about 150,000. Just off the top of my head, I think it's around 150,000 vacancies in the NHS at the moment. If someone wants to correct me on that, feel free. It's actually 2004, Graham. The main benefit of Brexit is be able to join again. And Rees-Mogg, it will take 50 years to achieve. I don't think it will take 50 years. I really don't. Where there's a will, there's a way. And you know what's interesting about the demographics towards moving back into Europe? It's not just, I mean, some leavers are changing their minds. It's gone up from like 8% to like 16% of remainers, leavers. So some leavers are changing their minds. It's gone up from about 8% to about 16%, I think, of leave voters who now think that it was wrong for them to vote to leave the EU. And that's driven the stats more towards this 58% number that we've got now who think that it's wrong to leave the EU. It was wrong to leave the EU. Hindsight is 2020. But the really disturbing thing is, like, so many young people, like 90% of young people who are just coming on to be able to vote now, who weren't allowed to vote in 2016, nearly all of them, like 9 out of 10, It's like ridiculous, super duper majority of them want to rejoin the EU or wanted us to stay in the EU. And then these old fucks who are like gonna die next week anyway, all voted to, not all of them, vast majority, a super majority of them voted to leave. And they dictated the course of the next 50 years of this country. Even though they're not going to be fucking alive. They're not going to be alive. I mean, I couldn't think of anything more selfish. I really couldn't. You know what they say, like, society is great when men plant trees, seeds to grow trees in the shade of which they will never sit. You know, building for the future. And what these Brexit voting twats have done, they've just destroyed it. They've destroyed everything we've built over the last 50, 60 years. They've destroyed it. And now it's going to take at least 15 years for our economy to get back on track. At least 15 years. It might take more. And then these Tory twats are going, well, it's fucking that fucking Steve Baker today in the House of Commons going, well, other countries have got problems. Yeah, but not as bad as ours, mate. We're the worst performing economy of all of the advanced economies in the world. All of them. There's about 40 advanced economies on this planet. And we are number fucking 40 in terms of our economy right now because of Brexit. And all the other countries went through COVID. They all went through the fucking, you know, the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and the petrol prices went up, the fuel prices went up, the gas prices went up. They went through all that as well. And yet they're like, oh, you know, we're not doing so bad. You know, other countries aren't doing well either. Which is just mad, isn't it? It's like someone having lost everything, you know, bet everything on fucking sad Ken in the fucking 3 o'clock at Cheltenham. And they've lost everything. They've lost their home. They've lost their job. They've lost their wife. They've lost their children. And they're in a shop doorway and they're like, oh, well, there's other people who are homeless. So, yeah. Well done, mate. Yeah, other people who are homeless. Yeah, good stuff. Wow. I'm just pessimistic. Sorry, Graham. Don't be sorry being pessimistic. I'm fucking pessimistic as well. This country's fucked at the moment. Big fucky fuck. I read today that Momentum's back. You know, if you can't know. Because they did such a good job. Such a good job. Such a great... Just the best. They were the best. Momentum, when they were in charge of Labour, oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. It was like they lost election after election after election after election. How many elections did they lose? I think they lost 7. 7, did they? There would have been 2 general elections, 1 European election, and about 3 or 4 council elections in which they net lost councillors. Yeah. Anyway, they're going to tell Keir Starmer what he should do. And he better listen to them, because they were so right last time. Anyway, and do you know what? It's just really annoying, right? Here's something. So there's all these right-wing bullshit artists out there, and they're really well funded because they all were, you know, smashed their way out their mother onto a pit of money. And they run all the newspapers. They run bot farms. They have the money to spend millions on political campaigns that they put through their company in the Isle of Man so they don't have to declare it to the Electoral Commission where the money came from, probably Russia. Anyway, they've got all this money, all this power, all this influence. And up against that, you've got a few little, you know, minnows, comparative minnows, who are trying their level best to get the message across that the Tories are bad, right? And there's outlets like Novara Media and Double Down News who spend all their fucking time slagging off Labour. And I'm just like, yeah, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Labour, but please, can someone big them up? Someone, I mean, at the moment, can we just, someone saying the Tories are bad? Let's maybe have Labour instead. just until the next election. You go back to slagging them off. I don't mind. I saw the video, Novara Media, and it was this far right-wing fascist twat, Peter Hitchens, the wrong brother died, who is this fucking idiot who sounds posh so people think he's intelligent. I suppose they associate him with his brother because he sounds a bit like his brother, but his brother, even though I didn't agree with all his politics either, he had a bit more nous about him. This is really the run to the litter, I assume. Peter Hitchens. Peter Hitchens on this supposed left-wing social media channel. And he was talking about the time he met Tony Blair and decided that Tony Blair was an idiot because he didn't know that Brazil was a loser-phone country. So there was a social experiment that was done probably in Stanford or something many, many moons ago. And it was really simple. The people in this experiment, they had to clap out the first line to Happy Birthday to You, right? Birthday song. So they clapped it out. And then they were asked if they did that to a room full of people and the people had to write down what they thought it was, how many would guess correctly what they thought, that it was Happy Birthday. Yeah? So have a guess. I mean, just think in your head how many you think would be reasonable. 50%? 30%? Nope. 4% got it right. 4%. And this is the curse of knowledge. If you know something, it seems really fucking self-evident to you. And you've got to be really careful because you don't want to come across as patronising or condescending or mansplaining, even worse. You don't want to teach someone teach someone's grandmother how to suck eggs, do you? And you don't want to seem patronising in this regard. But there's stuff you know and there's stuff you don't know. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. If you do know it, it's fucking obvious. And that's why when you watch a quiz show, you are screaming at the screen the answer that is so fucking obvious to everyone, and yet the contestant doesn't know it. The contestant doesn't know it because they don't have that knowledge. It doesn't make them stupid. It makes it mean that, they don't know that one little bit of information. But, I just thought it was really weird to have this supposedly left-wing, momentum-supporting conduit basically slagging off the last time Labour was in power. The last time it won elections. It was led by an idiot. What are we supposed to take away from that? A right-wing pundit, a guy who writes to the fucking Mail, for Christ's sake. We have a right-wing pundit slagging off Tony Blair, saying he was thick. There you go. There's a lovely video for you. Well done, left-wing media. Are they idiots? Are they being paid by the right? I don't fucking know. Anyway, fuck me off. Anyway, so I'm just going to jump back into your comments because obviously it's now 10 o'clock and I haven't even fucking mentioned tax. Hardly. Great profits to make on emphysema. Indeed. Marcus's biggest fan, France, said it would be fine if people... France would be fine if it went for the French. That's what I said with a smile. Some people who were meant to Maastricht 2, they didn't respond. Marcus's biggest fan. Have you ever dodged tax, Graham? No, I haven't dodged tax. In fact, I've never earned enough money to pay income tax. So if you want to throw another £2 into the super chat, I'd really fucking appreciate it. But yeah, no, I've never had the facility to dodge tax. I've never needed to dodge tax. Well, no one needs to dodge it, but I suppose if you're earning six-figure sums, then I suppose the temptation would be there, but it's not something that I have done. Anyway, I'm just pessimistic. About 2.5 million no votes have died of old age and illness linked to pandemic. Oh, what a shame. Ukraine and Britain joining the EU in the next 5 years. Who's in? Excellent. Mad Monk says, I stopped smoking 3 years ago when the pandemic hit. My brother used to bring me duty-free tobacco 3 times a year back from his holidays. Lockdown put paid to that. Best move I ever made. Yes, Mad Monk, you will last a lot longer without them. And they stink. They fucking stink. That's the thing. And it's mad the way that one of the knock-on effects of banning smoking in buildings, in pubs and offices and things, is that people don't smoke in the house as much as they used to. They generally go outside to smoke, because if they smoke in the house, because nowhere else they visit, none of the other buildings they go to stink of smoke, when they go home and it stinks of smoke, they actually can smell it and go, it's not very pleasant, is it? For a lifetime non-smoker like me, you can imagine. I worked in a bar. I worked in bars for 4 fucking years when people smoked. It's fucking disgusting. The worst, two worst things about smokers, right? No, 3 worst things. The first worst thing was the fact that it would make you stink. Me, like working behind the bar, it would make my clothes stink. I couldn't wear the same shirt the next night because it stank. My hair would stink. I'll get back off the shift at 4 in the morning and have to take a shower before I went to bed, because if I went straight to bed, my pillow would stink of smoke in the morning. Thanks, guys. The second worst thing they did was they would have a cigarette ashtray in the middle of the table, right? And some dickhead at some point would think it would be a good idea to pour some beer into that ashtray. So what are you supposed to do with that? Right, you got dog ends, right, ash and beer in an ashtray. What do you do with it? You can't put it down the sink because it's got dog ends in. You can't put it in the bin because otherwise you'll have a big load of leaky liquid at the bottom of your bin bag as you're carrying it out to the fucking bins, which are generally dumpster bins that you've got to lift the bag up and over your head to put in the fucking dumpster. Obviously, the people who do this, I've never worked in a bar, I don't fucking know, but then the worst, the absolute motherfucking worst, the people that I will put in room 101 or hell, if I have the choice, people who flick their fucking dog ends into the fucking urinal. How do you think that gets out, mate? Do you think we have a little machine, like a little robot that comes in and picks out your dog end out of the pisser, or out of the pissy fucking water of the pisser? Do you think we have one of them in the bar? No, we don't. One of us had to fucking do it. Put on a fucking rubber glove, dip your hands into the piss and take your fucking dog ends out the piss. People ask me why I hate smoking so much. I could say because my grandmother died of lung cancer, but I'm not. It's because of the fucking pissy water that you threw your dog ends in, you selfish bastards. Oh, and another thing, this has got nothing to do with, obviously, working in a bar, but you know how much plastic there is in the ocean, right? You know there's a mad amount of plastic in the ocean, right? The number one, by weight, is fishing gear that has been discarded fishing gear. So you imagine these massive nets, plastic big nets that have just been left by ships, boats, whatever, just thrown over the side when the use is over, there to get turtles snagged up in, and dolphins and whales and all kinds of things, because, you know, fuck the environment. The second biggest, you can look this up, the second biggest plastic by weight in the ocean, plastic waste by weight in the ocean, is cigarette butts. Because every fucker throws them on the floor, and they go into the gutter, and they go down into the gutter, into the drain, and then they go out into the rivers, and they go out into the sea. Thanks for that. Oh, and they don't ever disintegrate. I mean, they're made to be fireproof. Because obviously they stop you burning your fingers, don't they? The filter, yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. The French are Dunkirk. The minimum, 15 years to rejoin. Hard exit, I reckon 5 years. 5 years we'll be back in. Mark my words. Momentum back again to tell me to vote Tory. Yes, Tim, I think that's what they're trying to do. Go in the local shop. Do you need anything? No, actually, I'm all right. I've got milk. Although, fucking hell, milk's gone up in price. Jesus Christ. It's like doubled. It's doubled in fucking price, milk, in the last year. That's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, seriously, it was 50p for a pint, and now it's like £1. I'm not kidding. It's just fucking gone through the roof. Can Memento do force anything? Nah, not really. They're a spent force. What is a bot farm? It's a farm of bots. Bots like fake people setting up fake accounts for things and signing up for things and leaving comments that aren't real. It's a bot farm. John Barleycorn, one of the reasons we need PR is to enable the factions in the Labour and Conservatives to go their separate ways. Indeed. Mikey's there. Hi, Mikey! Saying hola hola from Chicago. My God, we got someone watching from Chicago. I'm not really well enough to conjure a counter proposal to Momentum apart and tell them to sod off, says Duke Vengeance. The more you know, the more you know. You don't know. Yes, the more you know, the more you don't know. You don't know. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect, isn't it? Also, turn the pub ceiling yellow. Yeah, these smoky pubs were killers. They were indeed. Chewing gum is worse. I don't know where that came from. I don't think chewing gum kills 6 million people around the world every year, 400,000 of them being children. Being literal children. Children in developing nations dying from asthma, from cigarettes, or, lung cancer, I guess. I used to manage a gas station. I saved us some destruction a few times. Smokers are cool. Deal with it, says Marcus, biggest fan. They're not. It's really horrible. And it's like to me, hunched over doing a rollie like this. And it's like sagging out of their mouth, and they've got the shoulders up. I'm really cool, me. I'm like fucking James fucking Dean. Anyway, graffiti over your anal. These pineapple chunks taste disgusting. How's your airframe, Graham? What's an airframe? What is an airframe? What's an airframe? I'm going to Google this. What is an airframe? Am I being really stupid? Airframe. How is your airframe? A model, like what? A model? A plane? The mechanical structure of an aircraft is known as the airframe. Okay, I've got no idea what that comment means, Patrick. You'll have to give me some more information. I used to clean my cymbals after gigs, and gunge from smoke was disgusting, says Paul. Yeah, the amount of nets and fishing line I've had to put around my prop is unreal, and that's just the canals. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And drunks washing their hands with toilet soap. By weight, there's more plastic in the oceans than there is fish. What a happy thought. Local shops' eggs have gone up 300% in price. Fucking hell. So it's not just me, QA. You've noticed this. Cheese is now a proper luxury. Now a cheap cheese sandwich is now a delicacy. 15 eggs for £1 is now over £3. Bloody hell. A lot of clothing is plastic. Acrylic, for example, virtually indestructible. Indeed, you want cotton. Just you wait a cotton pick a minute. Nigel Farage should be in jail. Yes, he should, for being a massive Nazi. Chewing gum in the urinals, that is. Oh, yeah, Tim. Good point. Well made. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, shudder. Teachers striking Wednesday. National strike is building and government not listening. Plumbed up. I can't wait for the national strike. My dad voted to leave, then left this world itself. After I explained things to him, he regretted it. Man, it's too late now, isn't it? Fuck. I keep saying it's the one thing that I'm sort of almost in a dark way grateful about, that my dad got dementia, is that if he didn't get dementia in 2016, or diagnosed with dementia in 2016, we would be having these massive rows about Brexit for the last 6-7 years. So I've been spared that. He's been spared that, which is good. The smokers realise there isn't much living for, and they're trying to hurry the process. Ergo, cool. Well, I mean, I don't mind that. I do believe that your body is sacrosanct. I think it's the only thing that you should really own in the world is you truly own, I should say, in the world, is your body. And so if you want to have a daft tattoo, or you want to take drugs, or you want to do something to yourself, I don't have a problem with that. The problem with smoking is that it affects the world around you. It's not just you that it's fucking up. It's fucking up anyone who's breathing that toxic smoke. And it is remarkably toxic. The most radioactive place on Earth isn't where they dropped the first nuclear bomb, isn't where they did the nuclear bomb tests in the desert outside Las Vegas. It isn't even around Chernobyl, or in the fucking room where they put the clothes that the firemen wore that were fighting the fire in the Chernobyl plant. It's inside the lungs of a 60-year-old smoker, the most radioactive place on Earth, because there's 2 radioactive isotopes that come from smoking. Which is one of the reasons it causes lung cancer, is because obviously radiation causes mutation, and mutation causes cancer, because cancer is one of your cells fucking up in its natural, part of reproducing. It fucks up. Something happens. It doesn't reproduce correctly, And because your body doesn't recognize it as a foreign threat, it doesn't destroy it. And that's why cancers grow inside you. Smokers help along that process by filling their lungs with literal radioactivity. And in the same way that, you know, people who go to sunbeds a lot or spend too much time in the sun, like literally it's radiation, mate. You're bathing in radiation. What are you doing? That's why skin cancer rates go massively high, and especially in places like Australia where they had the thinning ozone layer, and then white people living in Australia, which probably isn't a good idea to start with. Suddenly everyone was getting skin cancer, and it was because, yeah, there's a hole in the fucking ozone layer, and that radiation from the sun, there's hardly anything stopping that from hitting you, and radiation's pretty bad for you because it fucks up your DNA. Fun, eh? No, we're going to talk about tax, and now we're talking about fucking biology and radiation. When Putin threatened Boris, he was threatening the UK or just Boris specifically? I'm hoping he was threatening Boris specifically. I'm hoping something was inserted in him at one of the sex parties he went to, organised by his Russian friends. They know exactly where he is, and they can just like press a button, and there's a personal missile, it's about this long, that just fires out and just takes out Boris Johnson. You never know. Polonium and lead. Ooh. I work with the homeless in London. The amount of new people on the street is terrible, says Plum Duff. That it's great that you work with homeless people, and it is just insane, isn't it? Isn't it just insane? During the first few months of the COVID pandemic, we suddenly found homes for all of the homeless people in Britain, and then we turfed them out again, which results in what we call Bremen-Schlong radiation. Cells themselves or atoms within them become positively charged, which affects surrounding tissues and cells. Well, there you go. Fat, sugar, O3, and you're worried about a bit of smoke. Yeah, but fat isn't necessarily radioactive. Sugar isn't necessarily radioactive. It's not good for you. I know, but it's not radioactive. And also, to go back to my first point, it doesn't affect the people around you. It doesn't affect... If you are eating a pie... Everyone else in the room isn't forced to eat the same pie, especially if they don't like that pie. You know what I mean? Yeah? Anyway, ash from coal power plants contains significant quantities of arsenic, lead, thallium, mercury, uranium, and thorium. I'd rather have a nuclear power station myself. Just saying. Okay, guys, ladies, thank you so much for joining me for this War on Error, where I was going to talk about people dodging tax. But you know how these things go. I get pulled aside by the comments here. This is a two-way conversation, after all, and there will be meanders and tangents and wayward paths. But let's just say the Tories are a bunch of cunts. Can we all agree on that? Great. Okay, I'll be back on Wednesday at 10 o'clock for Prime Minister's Questions. Not safe for work, Prime Minister's Questions. And then after that, Wayne, if you're still there, I will be back on Thursday at 9 o'clock. So maybe saying hi to the Bin podcast while I'm there. So thanks very much for watching. Good night all. A big hello, good night to Number 3 and Joni and Reagan Elite and Plum Duff and Phil Spice and everybody else who's been watching. And Lefty Boaters, yeah, who's going to be there for the Not Safe for Work PMQs. Isn't Bremsschulung radiation restricted mostly to synchrotron radiation, cyclotron radiation, and beta decay? Okay, well, let's just leave the PhD to one side for a moment and let's just call it a night, shall we? So thank you very, very much for watching. I'm afraid that my computer has crashed. No, it's back. It's back. I just got that like not responding thing, which is never a good sign, is it? So yes, so thank you very much for watching. I will return on Wednesday. Did anyone see in the news how Australia is now searching for a 6x8mm capsule of radioactive stuff on a 1,400-mile long road? Yeah, I read about that context. It's mad, isn't it? Rio Tinto, the mining company, the evil fucking mining company that destroyed a 40,000-year-old Aboriginal cave, right, that had been used for over 40,000 years by Aboriginals. They destroyed it a few years ago to, find some fucking minerals in the ground. They now have lost this radioactive pellet and they're going to try and find it. I assume that, all things being equal, You could drive slowly with Geiger counters out both sides of your car, and then if there's a radioactive peak, I guess you could go, oh, it's around here somewhere. But the chances are something's going to eat that. So it's probably already been eaten by a kangaroo, which then died, and then that's been eaten by a vulture, and that's flown off somewhere else and died. I don't think they're going to find it, but you never know. If nothing has eaten it, who knows? Someone probably step on it like a Lost contact lens. Well, it's Western Australia. Hardly anyone lives there, so they've got a better chance of finding it, I think, than it was like a busy road, I guess. I don't know. Radioactive cane toads, Could you imagine? Cane toads are bad enough, and then they become radioactive and they become giant cane toads. They just go around eating everyone. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.